always choose to talk.
We ask the questions.
What is needed in the world?
Is that going to
More than 200 girls kidnapped from their school in northern Nigeria by the radical Islamist group Boko Haram. Their fate has become the focus of global concern and condemnation. The abduction has also brought international attention to the level of violence and insecurity in northeastern Nigeria.
We are Boko Haram.
Since 2009, Boko Haram, which wants to create an Islamic state, has been causing havoc in Africa's most populous country through a series of bombings, killings, and now abductions. Thousands have died. But this year has been the most violent stage of the conflict so far, with more than 3,000 killed in Boko Haram-related violence. The Nigerian government has promised to take all necessary actions against the insurgency and bring back normalcy to the region. But the military's claims of success against the group are being overshadowed by the more intense frequency and the scale of the attacks. Attacks by Boko Haram are also happening in big cities. In April, more than 80 people were killed in 2 blasts at a bus station just outside the Nigerian capital. People live in fear. This market in the city center is often shut down because of bomb threats. This is a city on edge. Faced with accusations of playing down the gravity of the insurgency, the Nigerian government has sought to internationalize the Boko Haram issue and spread the blame. The president, Goodluck Jonathan, has, however, largely stayed out of the media spotlight, deflecting critical questions to his aides who've been stepping up their campaign to defend the government's response to Boko Haram. The man leading the charge is the president's senior advisor, Doyin Okupe. Today, he talks to Al Jazeera. Doyin Okupe, thank you very much for talking to Al Jazeera.
Thank you very much.
How is it that the most successful army on the African continent cannot maintain security within its own borders?
But just the same thing that one of the most powerful armies in the world is the United States of America. They couldn't cope with Iraq. Insurgency is a difficult thing for a regular military setup to cope with. It's difficult, as we have seen in Britain, we have seen in Malaysia, we have seen in Sri Lanka, we've seen in Maghreb, in Africa, Maghreb here, all over the world. Because it's even worse when you have them as nationals. When the insurgents themselves are part of the country, and they're not differentiated easily. So it's a very difficult warfare. I'll be the first to admit that to you. But Nigerian government, like you said to your question, Nigerian government has been doing extremely well. In fact, we have done better historically when compared to others.
So what then do you say to the people in Borno State who've had their lives turned upside down by violence, people who feel abandoned by the central government?
Fully, that is also not even correct. There was a time when there were dusk to dawn curfew in the entire of Borno, Yobe, and Adamawa. Today in Maiduguri, which is the epicenter of these Boko Haram activities, life has returned to almost fully normal. What we now see is attacks, infrequent attacks by the insurgents along our borders with Cameroon, with Niger and Chad.
Do you think?
And it's so easy for them. You know what they do? Because those areas are characterized by mountainous
They're
areas.
very porous borders indeed.
Apart from being porous, they're also extremely very difficult terrain. Thick forests and ranging mountains. So they come in the night, attack and run back to Cameroon or Niger. You either stay in Cameroon or stay in Nigeria. If they stay on this soil, we will smoke them out.
Do you think imposing the state of emergency in Borno State, in Adamawa and Yobe State to end this insurgency is working?
Well, you have to understand, what military activities are, and there are some legal implications. For instance, if there are no state of emergency, you can't stop a man from moving. You can't stop a man from doing certain things. You can't enter into a man's premises.
The reason I ask is because more people have died during the state of emergency than before it was imposed. I've got data here that
the
says...
state of emergency is not to prevent death. The state of emergency is to allow the military to act unchecked and to prevent them from being sued, you know, in the law courts. People always forget about that. That's, you know, because, you know, if I just come and occupy your compound, for instance, all right, you know, you can drive me out. But under a state of emergency, you know, the army
allows the military to go unchecked.
Exactly. They can do, you know, they can do things that will facilitate their combat readiness, you know, against the insurgents.
On that specific point, what then do you respond to accusations that say that the Nigerian military itself has been responsible for abuse in this fight against Boko Haram, that civilians have been targeted indiscriminately, mistaken for Boko Haram?
Now, the UK and the US, and including Amnesty International, human rights organizations, they are not on location. They are not in Borno State. They are relying on information that is coming from Borno State and environ, and especially our media. Now, powerful people in Borno State and, you know, in the Northeast are against the presence of the military in those areas. And they have made it very clear. They even made presentation to the president that, you know, at the beginning, they said, move away your army, we don't want them.
Yes.
So naturally, you know, these people tend to find a way to hang the dog by giving the dog a bad name. That's one. Please follow, you have to be a bit patient with me. The second point is this. I told you, the issue of the fact that the insurgents are nationals, they are Nigerian citizens, make it difficult. You know, when a woman who is selling, you know, oranges or something, you know, herself is sitting on AK-47. Now, if you are watching from a distance and you see a soldier manhandles, you know, a woman like that, probably carrying a child, you say this is violation of human rights. But she's a Boko Haram. So these were the issues that we had at the beginning, that our observers and even natives, you know, found it difficult to believe that their wards and their children and wives and sons are also members of the Boko Haram. So, you know, but the army who is in danger, you know, their reaction and response are easily misinterpreted as an attitude or an action against innocent citizens. This so-called innocent, look at the lady recently, the lady who just,
suicide bomber.
Yeah, you know, how would you handle that?
Right.
If somebody had seen her in the bus, apprehended her and beaten her up or held her, they would say, oh, human rights violation.
The governor
so these
of
are the
Borno
issues
State,
that we have suffered.
The governor of Borno State said earlier this year that the Boko Haram militants were better armed and more motivated than the Nigerian military.
I am sure that Governor Shettima has regretted that statement.
Okay.
He himself, if the Boko Haram were that, if the Nigerian army were that bad, you know, he ought not to have confidence in them. But when he was going to the burial of one of the emirs, he went with 150 soldiers. Why didn't he go with his hunters?
Let me just finish my question.
Yes,
so
please.
Is the issue for the Nigerian army today a lack of motivation or a lack of good supplies? What is being done to motivate this army and supply it better?
Well, I don't know whether you read today, you know, that even, you know, the soldiers that are on the war front have been given increased allowances. They have been better motivated. You know, but we have a big country and we have a large contingent over there. You know, there may be lapses. I'm not here to deceive the world or deceive anybody. We have issues. There will be human issues. We had them in Iraq. We had them in Syria and all that. So it is not something peculiar. Sometimes, you know, soldiers do go into excesses, or, you know, and for which they are punished for.
Right.
And that's why they have court-martial. But, you know, overall and in the majority, our soldiers are disciplined, they are highly motivated, and they are very well catered for.
Former military regimes tend to cripple their armies so there can't be any more coups in the country. I mean, military coups were seemingly a feature of Nigerian politics since 1966. Could it be that the government of Nigeria is intentionally keeping the military weak to avoid a coup?
I don't think that is extremely simplistic. And I tell you why. You know, you don't need heavy machinery to do a coup. President Goodluck Jonathan, I've just left him. He doesn't even have a penknife around him. So even if you appear, you know, if you go to his office with a .45 Colt, you know, you get him out of the place. So you don't need heavy artillery, to do a coup. Civilians don't carry ammunition, so the most rudimentary ammunition that the soldiers have is enough to do a coup. So, that is a preposterous position. It's not correct.
Now, it took the abduction of the Chibok schoolgirls to bring international attention to the issue of Boko Haram in Nigeria prominently anyway. There's been a level of violence, of course, for many, many years for anyone who's followed Nigeria.
Not so many years, from 2009.
But for a long time, anyway, thousands of people nonetheless have been killed.
Yes.
You can't
not
deny
many,
that.
many years, 2009.
Right. Tell us about how you're cooperating with the foreign observers. How, are they helping just find the girls, or are they helping fight the insurgency?
I think the priority right now with our partners and those who are giving us assistance, the priority is finding and releasing the girls.
Are you any close to succeeding, you think?
I do not see how we can assemble such a parade of global players and we will not be making progress. It's inconceivable. I mean, we've got America here, we've got Britain, we've got Israel, we've got Canada, we've got China. I mean, Australia is coming. These are the best in the world. But I also want to say this. Rescuing school children in that number, 270, so to speak. There
was a bit of confusion when the crisis began, where we didn't know the exact number of girls had been kidnapped or how many had been rescued or returned to their families.
This is a tragedy that the ineptitude of the Borno state government and administration has plunged the whole country into. People outside Nigeria do not understand how the country works.
How the central government
the central government is so distant away from the state government and local government apparatus. Now, the first line of action is the local government, where incidences do occur, are supposed to brief the state governments, and then the state governments are, in actual fact, they are federating units. They are in control of their states. This has nothing to do with security. Collation of figures, bringing up facts are things that should have been done properly by Borno State. I regret, and it is regrettable, that the administration of Borno State didn't get it right. It's very sad.
Isn't there a risk that by making this a foreign issue, if you will, that Boko Haram might forge an allegiance, if it hasn't done so already, with the other groups?
History does not support that fact. You see, the fact is that even though it's been difficult to defeat insurgency, insurgents have never prevailed forever anywhere. Okay, that's the truth. Now, internationalizing the struggle itself, if you go historically, has always helped one way or the other. Recently in Mali, the French went to Mali and they came with ground troops. Nigeria went with ground troops. And in a very short space of time, the insurgency there was put under check. So, the Boko Haram in Nigeria, there was also, abundant evidence of collaboration with international terrorist groups and all that. So, there's no need to shy away from the fact, and it is good
that it's happening already.
Yeah, it has already happened. And the world, the global community abhors terrorism, and is ready to confront terrorism anywhere and everywhere.
Would Nigeria be willing to let a foreign power intervene if this situation was to worsen, as was the case?
No, in terms, in the Mali case, they had shortage of foot soldiers, but we have excess of foot soldiers in the country. Presently, we probably have about 20,000-30,000 soldiers in Borno State. We can quadruple that number. We don't need any foreign assistance. What we need foreign assistance for clarity is in area of technology, information gathering, satellite imaging, etc. Those are the things that we really need that we don't have.
Just coming back to the girls and their fate, would the Nigerian government be willing to pay a ransom for their release?
It is very clear that we're not doing that. The president said that very openly and very clearly.
Okay, so you wouldn't pay a ransom to release these girls?
I've said it before. This is a Nigerian problem. We're going to find a Nigerian solution to it. We've always been able to find Nigerian solutions to Nigerian problems. It doesn't really matter. We've seen this problem. we are on top of it, and we're going to solve it.
So what sort of negotiations are going on then? If you're not willing to
I
pay
will
a
not
ransom,
call-
if
I
you're
will-
not willing to release Boko Haram militants, because that was one of the demands that Abubakar Shekau made,
Yeah.
what is happening then?
You know, the issue here is this. It is not a question of A or B. There are so many options that are available to Nigeria. You know, there's that option of military, you know,
But that
we are-
might
which we are not-
endanger
which
the
we are-
girls'
which we are not going
lives.
to take. We are
Because
not
that
likely,
might endanger the
we are
girls'
not likely going to take that. There's the issue of ransom, which the president has said, ransom, which the president has declined on. But there are other issues that are
Such as?
engagement. It's an interesting community. It's a unique.
So dialogue.
Yes, engagement. We're going. We have engagement. We also have leverages that can be brought to bear because of respectable and responsive stakeholders that we have in our communities, who even the Boko Haram themselves have no choice than to respect. So there are many options. We are a traditional society. There are many things that the West do not understand that we have inherently in our system that can work for us in this matter, and that will work for us in this matter.
President Goodluck Jonathan has said that wherever these girls are, we will get them out. That's a promise he's made. But he only spoke publicly about the case after the domestic and international pressure, the loss of bold words. Let me just ask you this simple question.
Okay.
Why is it that more than 2 months after the girls were kidnapped, that the president hasn't visited Chibok, the area where these girls were kidnapped, and reassure their families and show his compassion?
Well, the president as a person has not visited, but the presidency has been and is still in Chibok. You saw the chief of defense staff. You saw the chief of army staff. You saw the chief of naval staff. You saw the inspector general of
But
police.
wouldn't it send a stronger message if Goodluck Jonathan himself were to meet the families in Chibok?
It is something that is coming. But, what we consider to be the most important thing, all right? Because, you see, we are not too much, we should not give too much considerations to theatricals, things that are just not, are only palliative of the moment. We have fundamental issues. We've got 270 girls, so to speak, under, abduction by a very criminal gang. That is enough border and enough burden for us to bear. And I know, and I've said it before, that the president...
But do you understand that some people might not understand?
The president is going to go there, all right? He's been to Borno, before. He even slept overnight. I've seen David Cameron, President Obama go to what places, they don't pass the night. This president passed the night in a war zone. So it's not an issue. We will get to that point.
Well, Mr. Okupe, the slow official response on this case has reinforced the perception
there was no
that
slow official response. There was no slow official response.
Well, this is a perception.
It was a perceived thing.
Okay.
Perception.
If you want, we can say
the
perceived slow response of the Nigerian government
Yes.
has reinforced the perception that Nigeria's ruling establishment is not invested in the lives of people like the schoolgirls of Chibok, people from the north who come from a historically marginalized part of the country. What do you respond to that? Again, if you're saying perceptions, we can keep...
I'll take you on that.
Yeah.
No problem. But you see, these are bats and bricks that are thrown from abroad, from a distance that is too far to see what is on the ground here. Hold on a second. This president is, we've had several presidents and heads of state in this country who have ruled this nation. One of the greatest problems of the North, and perhaps why we are in the state in which we are today, is because of the Almajiris phenomenon. That is, children who are born, who are thrown onto the streets to beg for food and beg for money. It is this president that conceived the idea of Almajiri schools. It is this president that has, the plan is to build about 400 or 500 of them. Over 300 have been built and are operational. In all the over 50 years of the existence of this country, and in more than 39 years of rulership by people from the north who have also done very well. But it happens to be that this is the man that considered it necessary to tackle that problem from its very foundation. If it's a man that does not care,
I think
he doesn't have to do this program.
The blame, I think, is not just laid on the administration of Goodluck Jonathan, but also on previous Nigerian governments. If you look at the figures,
you've got to separate it. This is a caring government.
Okay.
Yes.
You gave one example of what the government is doing.
I can give more.
Let me just give a few figures for our viewers who might not know what the situation is like in northern Nigeria. The World Bank says that poverty in northern Nigeria remains concentrated in the north. Lagos State in the south, for instance, has a poverty rate of about 23% compared to 77% in Jigawa State in the north. 50 to 75% of the young population in the north live in poverty, many of them unemployed, angry. So, here's a simple question. Can the Nigerian government really expect to eliminate the menace of Boko Haram when it hasn't addressed the fundamental problems in the north, and that is the entrenched poverty, illiteracy, unemployment?
Can any government in 3 years eliminate the dangerous consequences of 50 years of neglect? Is it possible? Anywhere in the world, in history, anywhere. You can only begin by some steps. This administration is only 3 years old, and it has started already with steps. Now, what complicates these steps is the violence. Now, when you have violence and it is not ceasing, it is difficult to rebuild. Any hope of rebuilding, rehabilitation, and reconstruction can only take place after this violence ceases. That is the truth. Right now, anything you do, if you go and build schools, they will burn it. If you build other infrastructural facilities, they will destroy them. So, but the truth of the matter, which I want you to go, and I want your viewers to go away with, is that the Goodluck administration is only 3 years old. The decadence in the north, is over 50 years old. So this administration is doing its best. And if God had been kind to us, God is always kind to us, we didn't have this problem, or this problem can be brought to an end quickly enough, more will be done.
What do you respond, Mr. Okupe, to those who say that politics are also at play here? Those who say that at the moment, the political leadership in the 3 northeastern states are aligned with the opposition, the All Progressive Congress, leading perhaps the president to distance himself from the situation, that politics are at play?
The president is not distancing himself from this situation, but politics is, I'm glad this came from you, politics is the main bulwark and the platform on which all this is rested on. And, internationally, the whole globe, the whole global community has assimilated and taken on the issue of bring back our girls. But you see, there's a difference between those who really sincerely empathize with the children and their parents. There's a lot of difference, between them and our own local pseudo activists who are only interested in drawing attention to themselves, who, because they do not have any serious government jobs now, want to create, some problem for government. So, politics of 2015 cannot be separated from the ferociousness of Boko Haram.
The president has said in the past,
including this kidnapping.
The president has said in the past that Boko Haram had infiltrated the Nigerian government, that even accused some members of the opposition of funding Boko Haram. Do you stand by those claims today?
Correct.
Who's funding Boko Haram?
I don't know.
But if the president is saying that some members perhaps of the opposition is, then he might have an idea of who.
That is the president. I speak for the president. I don't have the information that the president has.
Do you think outside forces are involved?
I'm not sure.
Who do you think has interest in destabilizing Nigeria today?
Well, it's difficult to say, but we have had the misfortune of having some of our elsewhere highly respected, responsible leaders boasted openly, these are not my words, that if Jonathan wins this election, that is 2011 election, that they will destabilize the country, destabilize his government, and make the government make the country ungovernable. These are statements of facts. They are available. Those who say them know themselves. Our people also know them. But besides that, we have a president that has the heart of a lion. that in spite of this hostility, he's forging ahead and is still doing his utmost best to ensure that Nigeria returns to a peaceful state.
Mr. Okupe, thank you very much for talking to Al Jazeera.
Foley,
An interesting
it's nice talking to
conversation.
you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.